Hey everybody, this is Tom Garman from GuitarAntihero.com and of course Guitar Antihero TV here on YouTube. And today we want to talk a little bit about picking. Pretty important as guitar players, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and dig in. As guitarists, picking is something that we're pretty much all going to be called upon or required to do at least at some point. And while there are many different methods of picking, both fingerstyle and pick style, a strong picking technique is necessary to them all. And we're going to take a look at some basic tenets of pick style playing here and give a sort of overview of different things to look out for and ideas to keep in mind, most of which are usually overlooked by most guitarists, so that we can make our overall picking technique as efficient and effective as possible. Now, relaxation is key to the entire process of guitar playing, and there are few areas of technique where this is more immediately relevant and noticeable than with our picking attack. We want to be relaxed, not stressed, but this concept is often misunderstood, especially by less experienced players, and this misunderstanding is unintentionally promoted by many guitar teachers and methods as well. Yes, we do want to be relaxed. No, we don't want to be comatose. Okay? Any physical action requires a degree of tension within the body, and this is how we move and do things. So instead of trying to remove all tension from the body, what we're really going for here is a lack of stiffness and being forced with our movements. Understanding where to apply more tension and where to remain loose is a critical element to building effective picking technique. So we should avoid excess tension and stiffness in the back, shoulder, elbow, and throughout the arm, down through the wrist and hand, but maintain the necessary degree of tension or pressure between the parts of the thumb and hand that grip the pick. Now, something that I'll often repeat to students is pay attention to your body and what it's telling you. And I have that in quotes because that's an actual quote. That's pretty much exactly what I say. Because you will know if you're too tense and you feel locked in any particular area, but if you don't pay attention to any of these signals, you won't notice them as much, and you likely won't do anything to fix the problem then either. So another obvious way to tell if you're gripping the pick too tightly and using excess tension is to really be aware of the quality of sound coming from your pick, not just whether or not you're playing the so-called right notes. Now, this is something I see a lot with not only beginning guitarists, but also with more experienced players as well. And part of it comes from what I call the old guy school of guitar playing, and no offense to old guys intended, but that basically amounts to playing most everything really hard and loud, which is not only unnecessary, but it's also undesirable. I guess that happens. I don't know, I suppose it ties in with the whole idea of, play like you mean it and play to be heard or whatever, but that's really kind of dumb because not every situation is the same, so you don't want to play in every situation the same, right? If you want more volume, grip the pick a little bit tighter. If you want less volume, loosen up on your grip. It's really pretty simple, yet many of us take a sort of universal approach here, and the result is that most everything played sounds pretty much the same when we do that. So practice picking a single note repeatedly with varying degrees of tension in your pick grip, and really notice the difference in sound and how the pick feels between your thumb and finger or fingers. This helps immensely by developing greater awareness, and it essentially forces you to pay attention to seemingly smaller aspects of your playing that will usually go unnoticed. If it feels too tight or tense, it probably is, and it will probably sound like it too. So listen to what your body is telling you. Now, the type of pick and the angle at which the pick attacks the strings are important as well, although it's not so much what you use as it is how you're using it. So generally speaking, a heavier, thicker pick will give you a more controlled and dynamically rich sound, but it's not a good idea to simply rely on a particular pick's material or thickness when working with a good picking technique. If you don't work with the pick itself in areas like dynamic shading and overall control, you'll always be limited then by your technique and limited to whatever inherent qualities are found within the pick that you happen to be using. So practice playing more lightly and softly with a heavier pick, and work on playing more aggressively and with greater volume when using a lighter pick. This helps to develop solid fundamental picking technique and awareness, rather than just grabbing something and hitting the strings while hoping for the best based on what you've chosen as your pick. Okay, now one question that many, if not most guitarists have is whether their picking movement should come primarily from the wrist or from the elbow. While there are different opinions on this, some of them with very sound reasoning and others based on impractical and unrealistic ideas about playing, like you find with most everything else guitar related, my personal view favors picking mostly from the wrist while letting the elbow sort of guide or propel your movement from one string grouping to the next. And I find that this naturally reduces unnecessary tension while keeping your picking movement small, as the primary point of movement, for the wrist, is closer to the strings than the elbow, and it allows for less accumulation of tension between different muscle groups. Now, I do remember reading several years ago that GIT, the Guitar Institute of Technology out in California, did a study that showed picking speed is slightly optimized when picking from the elbow, but I found that most students are too tight and tense when deliberately trying to pick from the elbow without much use of the wrist. So in the end, what's really important here is finding something that works for you personally, then drilling that again and again and again until it becomes more or less automatic. We don't want to go changing our picking technique too much when we're developing our basic technique, because chances are pretty good that we'll never stick with anything long enough to make it effective. So find out what works for you and then stick with it, okay? Economy of movement is a big part of an effective picking technique too, and this basically means that we don't move any more than necessary to produce the desired result. So keep your movements small, and over time they'll be far more clean and precise than if you were to use exaggerated movements and kind of lose focus and accuracy. And speed is a byproduct of accuracy, so by focusing specifically on accurate movements and attack, we're better suited to build increasingly greater levels of speed as we go along, and then we'll retain that accuracy even at much faster tempos. So pay attention to your movements and the sound that you're producing. Relax and notice any areas of excess tension. Work with these areas intentionally, and you'll find that they do become more automatic as your playing becomes more fluid, precise, and enjoyable, not only for you, but for anyone else who's listening to you too. Okay, well that's going to wrap it up here for this video on picking techniques, so make sure to stop by GuitarAntihero.com for more infos, tips, other goodies, and to pick up your free guitar myth-busting guide. Alright, thanks again, and until next time, we'll see you later.